Good afternoon, friends. I will self-introduce myself. My name is Padma, and I will be talking about Bhagavad Gita, awakening the warrior within. So, with that, let's see, how many of you have heard of Gita? Very good, that's almost the entire room. How many of you have read this book? Okay. So, well, I guess I can skip my first introduction that I was thinking of giving about Gita, that everybody knows about Gita. But just to complete, that thought, what is Gita? Gita is, the literal translation of Bhagavad Gita is the Lord's song. And it is indeed, it's very beautiful, it's poetic. It is considered the fountainhead of the philosophy of Sanatana Dharma. The word, some of you probably know this already, that the word Hinduism was coined much later by the British. The religion, it was not religion, it was just a way of life. We don't know when it has started. It's from time immemorial. It has been practiced in the Indian subcontinent for as long as we know. And it's called the Sanatana Dharma, that was the name. And it's an eternal religion. So it is understood, we are not sure, but it's understood that the Bhagavad Gita is actually part of the Indian epic called Mahabharata. Again, most of you probably know about that. It's one of the two epics from India. And Mahabharata consists of almost more than 800,000 small paragraphs called shlokas. And of that, Bhagavad Gita is a sliver, tiny sliver made of only 700 slokas. And so the proportion is disproportionate. But here comes this gem, this treasure that has withstood the time immemorial. Again, it's believed that Mahabharata was written about anywhere between 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. It could be even older. So that's the time frame that we are talking about. So this Gita, which is basically asking just 3 questions and trying to answer these questions. These are, again, eternal questions that we have always asked. And we probably already asked who we are, what are we doing, where are we going, and how are we going to go there? That's pretty much it. And I say that's pretty much it, and that's everything, isn't it? If we have the answers and the knowledge for those 3 questions, we have already done our part. Before I kind of delve into the Gita, I wanted to give you a little bit of background because very few hands went up and I asked how many of you have read this particular book. So this book was penned by Swami Kriyananda, but it's not written by him, and I'll tell you the story behind it. So this is 1950, Paramhansa Yogananda. He gets ready to give his translation of the Bhagavad Gita. And so his headquarters is still in Washington, in Mount Washington in Los Angeles. And so he decides to go to his desert retreat. And he says, and he wants somebody to help him with the editing. And he picks Swami Kriyananda, Donald Walter then. His age is only 23 years old. He's a brand new disciple. He's come to the ashram. And the guru decides to take him. And he says, Walter, I asked Divine Mother who I should take, and your face appeared. And I asked 2 more times, and your face appeared all these times, and that's why I picked you. So there he goes, so Swami Kriyananda is part of that. So as Master is translating, he writes, he's going into his superconsciousness, and he's tuning into the writer of Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, Ved Vyasa, and he's translating from that state. And then the book is done, and when the book is done, the Master says, a scripture has been born. Millions will find God through this. Not thousands, millions. I know it. I've seen it. And so that was then. And then the book doesn't get published. The master leaves his body. The book does not get published anytime soon. And much, much later, when the book does get published, and Swami Kriyananda reads it, he says, I'm not feeling that inspiration that I had felt when I had done it with him, when I had read that book. It's not the same book. It has been over-edited. The spirit is missing. The vibration of the master is missing. But fortunately, for all of us, I guess, Swami Kriyananda has an exceptional memory. He actually acknowledges that he has an exceptional memory. But even then, he hesitates. He feels like he should pen this book. Whatever he remembers, he should write that down. And I think he is supposed to be the instrument. It was supposed to happen. And as it turned out, he does get this done. This huge task, he gets this done. And can you imagine, even for Swami Kriyananda, this feat, he writes this down in less than 2 months. It must have been a divine magic, and it is a divine magic. So what actually happens, people who were around him at the time this was happening, was, and Devi and Jyotish has written a foreword for that experience, is that he was in a state where he truly was the channel through which Yogananda was kind of writing this book. And people who have read this book, and I can vouch for that, this is a treasure that will go down through the times. I have read other translations. As you can imagine, it's a scripture, right? It's a universal scripture. And there has been so many translations. Actually, my mother, being from India, she has had many opportunities to read many Gitas. But I remember when I was sharing this book with her, she would stop me many times and say, that's unique. I've never heard such a different way of looking at it. So this book is unique and very close to our hearts and has the vibration. Yes, it has the vibration. And for me, it has vibration of both my Guru and Swamiji. So now let's take a look at what is this book all about. Again, I think most of you kind of know a little bit. It's a story of, like I said, it's a story of basically the soul that has had its source in God, and then through eons it got separated through this drama that we call life, of incarnations, lifetimes after lifetimes, and it's wanting to find its way back. It wants its way out from this misery, this unhappiness, this longing of the soul, and it wants to once again fly in freedom in the skies of spirit. And how does the soul does that? How do we all go back to that source that our souls are yearning for? That is what this book all about. And in such practical terms. It's not lofty words. It's for people like you and me who live in this world, who have responsibilities. We have to wake up and we have to go to work every day. So how do we find God? That's what this book is telling us. Now, the entire story around it is fascinating. It's the Mahabharata, it's the epic. So there are two main characters. There is Krishna, who stands for God, and there is Arjuna, this great warrior, but this great devotee. He stands for the devotee in all of us. And so the devotee and the God are the best friends. That's it. That's what it is. The relationship between Arjuna and Krishna is that of teacher and student, yes, but even deeper, a deep bond of sakha. Sakha is a word I cannot translate in English because there isn't any word for it. Some of you have heard it in the hymn that we sing. Tvameva mata chapita tvameva bandhu sakha tvameva. So God the mother, God the father, the friend, beloved comes close to it. It's kind of a friend, beloved friend, Sakha. So that's a relationship between Arjuna and Krishna. That's a relationship that we can have with God, beloved friend. So here we are, and this is a very beautiful part I want to share with you. Happens before the Gita. This is part of the story of Mahabharata. So these two cousins, these two princes, the prince, there are 5 brothers, they are the Pandavas, and there are hundreds of the cousin brothers, hundreds of them. Everything in the Gita is an allegory. There's some kind of meaning behind it. So the Pandavas, the 5 brothers, stand for the virtues. Why? Because virtues are always less in number. The vices are plenty. Isn't that true? Vices always outnumber the virtues. And so the Kauravas and the Pandavas are ready to battle. How did we come upon this battle? That's the Mahabharata, all that story. So very short, kind of in a gist. The virtuous ones, the Pandavas, are the rightful heirs. They should have the kingdom. But they are denied, wrongfully so. They are thrown out of the kingdom. They go through a lot of suffering. But they are patient and they are righteous. And they come back and they say, and they plead to the Kauravas. Dhritarashtra is the father of the Kurus. The Pandavas' father is no more. He's dead, and he was the real king. And Duryodhana is the eldest brother of the Kurus. And so the Pandavas come and plead to them, we don't want too many, just give us 5 villages. And guess what Duryodhana says? Duryodhana stands for material desire. He's material desire. He says, 5 villages? I will not even give you the tip of the needle. That much land I will not give you. So there's nothing much else to do. Battle is imminent. And now Krishna is a central figure in Mahabharata. He's also a king. He represents God, and he has a huge kingdom. He has the most powerful army. Who is he going to side? The Pandavas or the Kauravas? Big question. So Arjuna from the Pandavas and Duryodhana from the Kauravas, they go to ask Krishna, to ask him. But Krishna said, again, such a significant thing. Think about it. He says, I will not hold a weapon. He's not going to fight the battle. God is not going to fight the battle for us. We have to fight it. But he says, you have to choose either between me or my wealth, my army, my strength. Isn't that wonderful? And so both of these 2 teams, the armies and whoever represents the army, they go to see Krishna. Krishna happens to be sleeping at that time. And so Duryodhana, being the material desire, he always wants to grab the best, and he goes and quickly sits right next to Krishna's head. Head is supposed to be the most important part of the human body. And Arjuna is the humble devotee. He goes and sits, where else can he sit but at the foot of his teacher, his beloved. So he sits at the foot. And guess where does a person look when he sits up from his sleep? He looks towards the foot. So he looks at Arjuna and says, well, I have seen Arjuna first, so Arjuna gets to choose what he wants. Does he want me or does he want my wealth? It was very easy for the devotee. The devotee wants God. So the devotee says, Krishna. Arjuna says, Krishna, I want you. And Duryodhana is like, oh my God, that was close, because he wants the wealth, he wants the army. So both the parties are happy. But I think right at that point, the decision for the outcome of the battle was made. Right then. Wherever there is God, God is always giving us a choice, isn't it? That choice we have to face every moment as we go through our life. Do you want me? Do you want my joy? Do you want my love? Do you want truth? or do you want my gifts? Everything else. Everything else. So with that, so Krishna is going to be the charioteer. He is going to, again, very significant, he's going to drive the chariot of Arjuna. Only if we allow God to drive our chariot, all our battles can be won. We don't have to worry about it. So there is Krishna riding the chariot, Arjuna at the back, and Arjuna says, Krishna, before this battle starts, because understand this battle is between people whom he knows, who are his enemies, his loved ones, his relatives, people who have grown up with. And so what is this battle? You kind of become suspicious at this point reading the Gita. What is this battle really about? Well, it depends what you want to make of it. But this battle is actually happening within our own selves. You can think of it in your mind. You can think of it in actually, literally in your body. The battle is between the good and the bad. The battle is between the ego. The ego wants to keep us bound. The ego wants to keep us chained on this earth. That's a design of God. The ego thinks everything it sees around it is separate from its own self. The ego is very committed to the body, to this personality, and we cannot think beyond that. But the soul is constantly trying to woo us towards what will really make us happy. And we are both. When we quieten our body and mind, and when we are tuning in to what is left, which is the soul essence, that's constantly wanting us to move inward, to find that center where there's nothing else. And the ego is saying, hold on for a second, I'm not going to let you go that easy. What about all these known things that you know? We love the comfort zone of the known, isn't it? We don't want to go out and try something new. We don't want to try something that we have not tried, even though that means growth. The ego does not like growth. The ego likes to stay exactly where it is. And that's constant. This is basically the battle that the Gita is talking about. And there are so many aspects to it that's what this book highlights. So remember I said the king, the Kuru's king, King Dhritarashtra, he's blind. He's born blind. And he signifies the blind mind. Think about that for a second. Mind, the blind mind, is limited by our senses, our five senses. It can't think beyond that, and that's us most of the time. How many times are we really going deep within us and shutting off the sense telephones? That's exactly what happens in meditation. As we are trying to meditate, we are trying to go away from the sense telephones. But most of the time the mind is simply kind of trying to go around business with the help of the five senses. And hence it's blind, because the five senses is not doing much justice. And so Dhritarashtra wants to know the outcome of this battle. And Sanjaya has been given vision, divine vision. So Sanjaya, what is that? That is intuition. Yogananda said, intuition is the soul's power to know God. We all have that power. And so Sanjaya, the intuition, is helping the blind mind understand what is really going on. As we go on through our days, our daily activities, every moment we are facing with this battle between the ego and the soul. And there is a result of that. Sometimes the ego is winning and sometimes the soul is winning, isn't it? And this is very interesting how, at the very beginning of the Gita, Dhritarashtra is asking, what was the outcome? Can you imagine? You are ready to watch a football game, you open your television, and you're ready to watch it live, right? So you're going to ask, okay, who's winning? He's asking, who has won? Yogananda said that itself is a huge clue that this book is talking about something else. So we ask that question after the battle has been done, and this is that battle, that moment by moment battle that we are constantly battling within our own self. And so the story goes on that Arjuna says, take me through, I want to see both the sides. So take my chariot right to the center, where these great armies have come together for this fight, this huge battle of Kurukshetra. The Kurukshetra is actually our own selves. And so when he sees the enemy, he doesn't have the courage to face that enemy anymore. And he's bent. So see and he throws his bow down. The bow stands for our back, our backbone. And so, again, it's such a significant thing. When we are all slumped down, our energy is going down. When we are all straight, and I'll talk about that in a second, how important our spine is to us. And so Krishna, therein starts Gita. Gita is the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna right there. And some people say this is absurd. This thing that 700 stanza, how long did it take them to talk? And this is all happening right before the battle. And some people say, well, maybe it was timeless. Time stood still at that point when this dialogue happened. Time did not fly by. And in this age of science, we can kind of begin to understand it, right? The science fiction shows us some of those movies where time hasn't gone through. So I'm now going to we do this class for about 6 months in our center. It takes 6 months to actually understand the Gita. So at the very core then, the questions that's being asked is, who are we? Who are we? And Krishna is saying, you are the soul, Arjuna. The soul that no weapons can cut. The soul that no water can drown. The soul no fire can burn. It is eternal. It is forever. It is timeless. It has always existed and will always exist. Why? Why are we that soul? And how are we that soul? Because we are part of that infinite. And he says the body, just like you change clothes, the same way, so the soul changes the body as it fits it. As simple as that. And so the body and the mind, Yogananda explained, the body and the mind, this personality, this body, this does not define us. We are much more than that. We are that soul essence. And if we are feeling limited by the body, we are not really experiencing the real thing. And so that's the first answer to that first question, who are we in reality? And then, how are we going to get rid of this misery? Because at some point Krishna is saying, Arjuna, get away from my ocean of misery and suffering. And I don't have to talk about that, friends. Right? I don't need to list, just like Peter said, I don't need to list the number of miseries that are on our list today as we look around the world. Plenty. And so basically, the very essence of it, he's saying, Krishna is explaining that we are made we are not made the same. Some of us has an inclination, we love to work. And so we are karma yogis. And so how should we work in the world? We will work in a way that we have no expectations of the fruits of the results of our action. Selfless action. What does that translate into for us? Service. We are all working throughout the day. Can we change that to service? So we could be teachers, we could be parents, we could be healers, we could be painters, artists, doctors, lawyers. Can we all do service throughout the day? Then we are karma yogis. We are moving towards our real self. And then he says, there are some people who are more intellectual. They like to discriminate as they go through life. And so these are jnana yogis. And how do I become a jnana yogi? Not through dry reasoning, because reasoning is limiting. Remember, we are not the mind, we are not the body. So not through dry reasoning, but through truly understanding, practicing non-attachment. Asking questions like, is this really mine? Is this house really mine? That car? These family members? Everything that I think is mine? Is it really mine? Or is it just bondage? How many lifetimes have I gone through this, thinking this is me and mine? What will free me truly? And so now you are practicing Jnana Yogi. And there's far more. These are like chapters I'm covering in 2 sentences. And then lastly, the devotion, the person who loves, who has a big heart and loves to love. And these are Bhakta Yogis, Bhakti Yogis. And Krishna is saying, in a way, the Bhakti Yogi is the most fortunate because it's the easiest way of finding God. Because the devotional person is saying, I don't really care, I don't need to know the nature of your world, God. I don't understand all these complexities. I just love you. And I know you will show me the way out. And so how does he go throughout life? He is constantly surrendering. He's doing his very best in everything. So think about it, by his right hand, he has the weapon, you have to fight. This is the battlefield. He's doing his best to become that warrior. But with his left hand, he's constantly holding on to God. Arjuna, be that Arjuna. And that's why Krishna is saying, "O Arjuna, be thou a yogi." And so we can also be like that. But that's not it. So these 3 tendencies are like the 3 tripods. And at the very center, Krishna is saying, just like the tributaries come together and form the river, that river is the Raja Yoga. What is this Raja Yoga? I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that and then I'll conclude. The Raja Yoga is this stream of energy. So that's the spine. And our energy spine. And as the energy is lifting up, so that is the path of evolution. And basically that leads to what Yogananda, the teachings of Yogananda that he brought, that culminates as Kriya Yoga. So we are directly working on the energy of the spine. And yes, these 3 tendencies, and we can all agree to that, right? We all have a little bit of all these 3 tendencies. And so we are all being those 3 kinds of yogis, but at the center of it, that energy needs to rise. And you can make it rise consciously. And that's what Kriya Yoga does. And that's why Yogananda said, Kriya Yoga, practice Kriya Yoga, that is the airplane route to God. Okay, I think is my time up? Okay. So before we end, friends, I want you to just sit up straight and close your eyes and quickly think about the moment. Just go, kind of run your life very quickly, maybe in 3 seconds. So you're kind of regressing back, becoming younger and younger. Youth, teenage, really tiny, tiny baby. Before you were born, right at that moment. And now feel like a warm blanket around your heart, the presence of God. That was always there. Before you were born, all through this life up to this point, for time immemorial, that was always there. Feel that warmth. Feel that as the embrace of God. You're loved. You're protected. And now at that central part of your being, see that pillar of courage, of light, the presence of God. And see yourself holding on to it. Everything around you is constantly changing. This life, as you grew up, the past few years, lifetimes of changes, constantly changing the drama that we call of life. And amidst that unchanging presence of spirit, and feel that you're holding on to that. And now imagine you're the warrior. Feel courage, strength in your heart. And with the help of this love and courage, we will stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. Because that's who we are. We are warriors. And we have God right next to us.